be a comic. Jab jab would have no sense. We mash up the place with fancy atomic. And jab love the engine and so y'all just come and raise up your bonnet. From jab in the party, boy, you know the friend done. Tell them we don't stop drink until the rum done. Roll it with a piece of iron, strong rum and a good jump. Jab jab we don't drink and drive. We block the 20 labels. I come to Lego, 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 Lego jab. I come to mash up the place and don't hear that I come here to Lego jab. Lego, 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 Lego jab. Y'all want walk up on the snake in a bag and just a do Lego jab. Lego, 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 Lego jab. I come to mash up the place and don't hear that I come here to Lego jab. Lego, 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 Lego jab. Y'all want walk up on the snake in a bag and just a do Lego jab. I tell them what you must go play. It's a dirty must go play. It's jab jab and let's play. Green in a must let's play. I tell you what you must go play. It's a dirty must go play. It's jab jab and let's play. Green in a must let's play. It's a jab jab feeling right now, man. I tell you, Carnival, 49 sugar man. Remember, 49 is a must. You gotta have a 49 before you have a 50. Otherwise, you're gonna have to go back over and say 49 again. Okay, so get it right. In the meantime, don't forget Calypso Tent coming up on Saturday. We're going to be bringing that live via ZIZ radio, via ZIZ television. We're going to be streaming it live on our Facebook page and also on YouTube. So you know you can't miss out nothing at all. Hey Kimberly, call me back. I got to talk to you on a one-on-one, please. And in the meantime, don't forget it's going to be via Zoom. So you cannot go to the Warner Park area and stuff. They will not be having audience at this time. Hopefully, in the coming weeks, they may have a couple of entrants on a first come first serve basis. So in the meantime, that's how the thing going on. Okay, Kimberly, call me back. Okay, well, the time in the studios, it's 4 minutes down after the hour of 11 o'clock. And, of course, we're going to bring you Frank and Candy. You stick and stay right where you are. When we come back, it will be Frank and Candy for today, Friday, November the 13th, Black Friday. Well, 2020, boy. We'll find out if Mr. Blake saw any black cat crossing the road.
ZIZ Radio, entertaining the nation, enjoyed by the world.
The thing start now! Hey, soul lovers! The St. Kitts Nevis National Carnival Committee presents the 2020 Calypso 10, a virtual series on November 14th. Legend! November 21st. Proud Sound! November 28th. Legend! And December 5th. Proud Sound! Exclusive streaming at 8 p.m. on the SKN Carnival Facebook page, YouTube channel, and on ZIZ Radio and Television. These events were made possible by our platinum partner, ZIZ Broadcasting Corporation. Our gold sponsors, the St. Kitts Nevis Development Bank and the Royal St. Kitts Hotel. Carnival celebrations redefined for Sugar Mass 49. Music, math, and folklore. Experience the vibrancy of Sugar Mass 49 digitally, anytime, anywhere. Stay connected on our social media platforms by subscribing to our YouTube channel and liking our Facebook page, SKN Carnival, for updates on live virtual events, competitions, and much more. Carnival celebrations redefined for Sugar Mass 49. Strict COVID-19 health and safety protocols will be observed.
Economical, we're the leader, serving you faithfully. You can trust we are the best in quality. All we wanna say is we're always affordable every day. DELCA, Delta Petroleum. We are the best in the Caribbean. Oh, Delta Petroleum. You know that we are your number one.
Some things in life are better together.
Like Kingston and Dancehall.
Like Sundays and streaming football.
Like secret texts between best friends.
No more limitations.
Like video chats with you and Granny on weekends.
Like a road trip and playing songs on loud.
For the community, we have a unity movement with a new energy.
Digicel will bring together all the experiences you love. From the latest shows, sports, music, radio, breaking news to HD video chats, cloud storage and more. The Caribbean's fastest mobile network. Digicel, better together.
Catch Real Talk with real people on Frank and Candid with you, the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. Monday through Friday from 11 a.m.
It's Frank and Candid on ZIZ Radio.
Okay, great. We are back with you today, Friday, 13th November, Friday the 13th November 2020. I am sorry, Ronnie Rascal, but I must admit I only subscribe to the theory of Black Friday if it means that things good are going to happen. If this is Black Friday, then it means positive, constructive things should be happening. I am not one of those who have adopted the belief that anything black is negative and bad. Alright? So if this is Black Friday, it means good things are going to happen. And hey, one of the first good things that happened this morning was the restoration of our electricity supply. I guess most of us were still asleep when the majority of the country, I think, was restored. The majority of the country was restored with respect to the power supply. So that's a positive today, Friday the 13th. We're hoping that by the end of the day, long before the end of the day, the rest of the country will in fact be returned with its access to power, electricity. So we want to thank the engineers, those who worked throughout the night, while the rest of us were enjoying our sleep, who worked towards ensuring that we enjoyed power again. We're thankful for that. Of course, we want to commiserate with those individuals whose houses have been threatened by the undermining of the grounding of their edifices, their buildings, their houses in that area of Frigate Bay. We hope that they will be able to find alternative accommodation in quick time, because we know that it's nigh impossible for them to return to do those buildings under those conditions. Alright, we expect the experts to tell us what will eventually become of those pieces of property. But definitely it's a shame for those of us who own houses. It's a shame when these kinds of things develop, and I think they might very well be described as acts of nature, right, over which man had no control, except if we were to be foolish enough to build on sand, according to the Bible, to draw an analogy. So we want to hope that they find comfortable alternative accommodation. Alright, today of course is the end of another week. Next week we begin the third week of the month of November. See how quickly the time flies, and don't forget, Friday comes around more quickly than any other day. But today, as we have another open line, next week I think we're going to be having guests every day except for Tuesday, when there is no session because of the House of Assembly. But today I wanted to continue the discussion begun by a caller and taken up by other callers yesterday with respect to retiring of folks in the civil service. Alright, I wanted us to continue that discussion because I think it's important. We've been having it ad hoc from time to time, but maybe this time we give it some serious attention. And we can begin right here on Frank and Candid. The question of when people should retire. What should be the main determinant of people retiring? One person, of course, seemed to believe, and he was supported by others, that it should be a matter of age. So that it doesn't matter if you started work 2 or 3 years before a particular age sets in, you must quit. Alright? Let's discuss that a little bit now. Alright, so folks should be retired. They should quit their post at a particular point. Talk to me? Okay. If so, at what point? What should be the age at which one retires? And we are talking here at a particular age, a chronological age. It doesn't matter whether one would have started work 2 or 3 years before, or even a year before. The suggestion seems to be that if you reach a particular age, whether it be 50, 60, 70 or 80, that you should quit upon attaining that age. And because we know that quitting is automatic at that age, one should begin to prepare so it does not come as a surprise. One would have undertaken the necessary actions to prepare himself for that inevitability, that eventuality. But what should be the age then? Some people were saying yesterday it should be 62, which really, I think, is being confused with the age of retirement, which should be 55, as opposed to 62, which is the age for qualifying for Social Security. They're not necessarily the same. Okay? And we note that lots of persons who would have worked for many years are dying before they reach the age of 62. And so they have not been able to reap any benefits from that particular facility. So what should be the age? And when we speak of age, we must bear in mind the fact that we are now experiencing greater, longer life expectancy. So whereas 55 might have been okay when the life expectancy was 60 or thereabout, now that it is heading towards 80 or thereabout, should it still remain at 55? Which would mean, of course, that an individual who is obliged to retire at 55 would have 25 years of what? Nothing to do, so to speak. Let's talk about that. All right? Should it really be a kind of mechanical operation where bagadam, as soon as you reach a particular age, once you hit 60, you know you quit, you're out of there within a week or so. Once you reach a particular age, what should that age be? Right? I'd like to get some discussion on that. Let's take our first caller. Hello.
Good morning, Mr. Blake. How are you?
Morning, sir. Not bad at all.
Okay. Continuing what we spoke about yesterday.
Yes.
In relation to age.
Yes.
The big question, can the government post afford to pay these persons when they go beyond a certain age? Let us, for argument's sake, said 70.
Yes.
Okay?
Mm-hmm.
What about the young generation? What about the question is really, can the government afford to pay persons because it...
Hello? Hello? Oh boy, that's a shame. I hope he calls back. That's a shame. I really hope that he gets an opportunity to call back. Alright, but his point was what happens to the younger people and also whether the government can afford. Of course, government can afford to. Sorry? Wow. Okay, seems like we're having an issue with the phone lines. It seems to be dying out on us. Let's hope that they are resuscitated, resurrected in quick time. If an employee remains at work until he's 75, government pays him. If he's replaced, government still continues to pay. Just the government will pay a different individual, but it costs government the same amount of money. All right. The question is then, so that would be a moot point more in my view, because that demand on the government, that emolument would have to be paid, be met, whether it is occupied by somebody who is 75 or 25. Okay? The question is, if somebody is allowed to work until he's 75, what happens to the guy who is 25? Alright. Of course, we are assuming here that the individual at 25 must be employed by government. We are also assuming that the one at 75 must also continue to be employed by government. So this is where I would like to get some views, because I am not one of those who support the view that people should be asked to retire automatically at a particular age. I think there should be more factors, more variables that determine whether someone should be terminated or someone should quit his post. Alright? I was making the point yesterday and I want to repeat it. Is it more sensible? Is it more just? Is it fairer to ask someone to quit when he's 60 or 70? Even if he's performing, he's achieving his targets, he's realizing his objectives, he's contributing to the growth of the organization. Does it make more sense? Does it have more legitimacy to ask him to quit, having arrived at a certain age, as opposed to the fellow who is 25 or 30, who clearly is not performing, who has a poor attitude, whose work ethic is rotten to the core, who is unable or reluctant to adapt to changing conditions in the workplace, whether it be conditions, technology, demands, and so on. So, which makes more sense? Which is better for the individual, for the organization, for the economy, for the country? To ask the guy to quit because you're 65 now. So sorry, see you. Sure, you were one of the best employees in terms of all the yardsticks which one uses to measure employee performance and to determine employee behavior, the effectiveness of an employee's output, irrespective of that. But you're 65, so you gotta go. There's a fellow out there 25 waiting to come in. What happens if someone who is at 30 is ill with a terminal or chronic illness? So we just keep him on because he's young, but the fellow who is 70, who is still very healthy, all the doctor's reports, both his own personal doctor as well as the one ascribed or prescribed by the employer, the government, all present the same conclusion. This guy is as fit as a fiddle. So this is what we want to look at. What about persons who are in their position simply because of political allegiance as a result of the distribution of political patronage, and so that individual feels that he's entitled to a reward for his support, and so he doesn't perform? And I can tell you that during my years as a teacher, which started when I was a teenager back in 1980, there are persons who tell you, so-and-so put me here, and you could talk all you want. You can't do me anything. You can't move me because so-and-so, calling a minister's name or head of government for that matter, put me here. Absolutely poor performance. So who should we really ask to retire, to quit, to leave, to go somewhere else? Who should we send home? Right? And do we just put someone in the position that was occupied by an older person simply because he's younger? So should my son, if I am 65 or 75, should my son who is 30 just be allowed to take my place? What about training? What about his credentials? What about his qualifications? Now, of course, we can't say that an individual must have experience in order to land a job, because you only get experience from having landed a job, from having obtained a job. Okay? That cannot be. But how do we go about that? I want to argue, ladies and gentlemen, that what we should have is a non-political, strictly independent entity to hire, to make decisions with respect to hiring, promoting and firing individuals in the civil service, in the public sector. That is my view. It should not be left to the government entity, because like I said, we know, given the realities on the ground here in St. Kitts and Nevis, that if one is vocally and unashamedly and unapologetically in support of a particular political party and makes that abundantly clear, which he's entitled to, no matter his age, especially if he is close or over that so-called age of retirement, he can look forward to a letter reminding him that his time is up, as opposed to the other guy who gets the job, and because he figures that his bosses are in charge of the country, does little to no work. And then another question you want to ask when the lines got back up, and you can call again because the technicians are working on restoring the lines. What must retirees do? What would you recommend that they do? Go home and sit in a rocking chair and walk away until when? I don't know. What must they do? And another critical question which we have to come back to: should these regulations with respect to retirement apply to all persons employed by government, including politicians themselves, or should there be exemptions? Police officers, permanent secretaries, persons in so-called high office. Should it even extend to the position of the governor, the Queen's representative, the Governor General? Should we say that when you get to a certain age, you must demit office as an employee of the state? Or are we saying, hey, no, this only applies to teachers and nurses and police officers and clerical workers and so on? What are you saying? What about in the private sector? Is the private sector totally exempt from these regulations? So persons can stay in the private sector until they're 99. Whether he's performing or not, there's no demands on him to quit at any particular age. What about, so those chief executive officers? What about priests and ministers of religion? Should they too be allowed to continue? Why do we allow them to continue? Because we figure that they are still sane and sober, in control of their mental faculties. They're physically able to move about and perform and get the work done. Why should it be different for people in the public sector? Because the same argument can be used that the younger persons able and perhaps anxious to take over those posts. So how do we strike that balance? Because definitely we want to cater to our younger people. We will be discouraging young folks from advancing themselves academically, professionally, in the various areas of growth and development if, after having subjected themselves to formal training at the tertiary level, whether it be a first degree or second degree, and they are not able to obtain jobs, they question the validity, they question the worth of subjecting themselves to 2, 3, 4, 5 years of university study with no hope of landing a job, especially one that is in sync with their training, their aptitudes, their proclivity, having graduated. Alright? We know it will be difficult to fathom a young person sitting back at 25 unable to find work, mind you, in the public sector now, while he looks at someone who's 75 happily going to and from work. I think it demands some delicate and intricate maneuverings to address this matter. Right? What should not be and should cease with immediate effect is, oh dear, what a shame. Yeah, phone lines, I understand, are gone for the time being. We don't know why, but let's hope that changes sooner than later. I was saying, what should definitely cease, in my view, in my books, is the practice of retaining some people and asking others to quit. And from the layman's point of view, it seems as though this is based on the individual's political affiliation or political allegiance or political persuasion. That's what it would seem. Or, in other cases, because this individual is termed indispensable, quote unquote, because in truth and fact there's no indispensable person. But because this person has a particular area of expertise which is difficult to replace, right? There is no immediate replacement. We keep him on until way past the so-called retirement age, way past 55, 65, 95, whatever, because, hey, he's still doing well. And so although he's 10, 20 years beyond that age, we can't very well just ask him to quit because, hey, not just the organization, but the country by and large would suffer, since it would create a serious void. So, that's what should cease in my books, okay? If for the time being, until we arrive at consensus, if that's possible, we should let everyone who is performing, because that's my book, I'm going to insist that really that should be the main criteria. That if the individual is achieving the goals set, he is a team player, he's working judiciously, he's working honestly, he's working as expected, as demanded, to see to it that his particular area of work, wherever he's deployed, is doing well, okay, he's performing, he's achieving. If he passes those tests, okay, if he's showing clearly that he's in the top of the class with respect to that, even if it is clear that he supports a different political party, and even if he's 10, 20 years past the so-called retirement age, I think he should be kept on. But for those persons who by nature of illness simply, I mean, we have to be merciful, compassionate and so on towards persons who are ill, all right? But if the individual is being kept on for token, symbolic reasons, but really is not capable of performing, I think there should be a special set of arrangements for him or her. But for those persons who are not performing, ladies and gentlemen, whose attitude stinks to high heaven like stale mackerel on a moonlight night, whose work ethic rots and putrefies, why are we keeping them on? Simply because they're 25? Nah. So this is where I wanted to have some conversation. It's a pity that the lines are down, and if they don't get back up, we will resume this next time around. I don't know when that will be, because I know I have a guest booked for Monday, and on Tuesday there is no session. There's House of Assembly. On Wednesday, according to my diary here, and Thursday and Friday there are guests booked. Of course, there are times when the guests don't turn up, but so far I really would like to get some discussion on that. And I believe that those who are in a position to make things happen, who make decisions, the movers and shakers, as it were, I believe that if they don't listen actively, they do at some point, and so they are aware of the general feeling of they get a pulse of the nation by listening, even if it's afterwards, after the fact, to these discussions. Not just this one, of course, but wherever they occur and whenever they occur. Because that's important. They must know what is the thinking of the so-called common person. All right? Since they represent the vast majority, they are the ones whose vote would have been responsible for putting them where they are. They must pay attention to what the people, especially in a democracy, what the people think, what they request, and of course what they deserve. What we're going to do now, we're going to take a commercial break, a station break, and come right back, continue our discussion here on Frank and Candid.
Catch Real Talk with real people on Frank and Candid with you, the people of St. Kitts and Nevis. Monday through Friday from 11 a.m.
It's Frank and Candid on ZIZ Radio.
The things that now! Hey, so lovers! The St. Kitts Nevis National Carnival Committee presents the 2020 Calypso 10, a virtual series on November 14th. Legend, November 21st. Proud Sound, November 28th. Legend, and December 5th. Proud Sound. Exclusive streaming at 8 p.m. on the SKN Carnival Facebook page, YouTube channel, and on ZIZ Radio and Television. These events were made possible by our platinum partner, ZIZ Broadcasting Corporation. Our gold sponsors, the St. Kitts Nevis Development Bank and the Royal St. Kitts Hotel. Carnival celebrations redefined for Sugar Mass 49.
At ZIZ, we want to take a moment to salute our small business owners and encourage you to support them. Our small business owners are always hard at work providing quality goods and services to you. They also provide employment for many and can be counted on to give back to our communities. Today and every day, we salute our small business owners and we say thank you for the opportunity to provide advertising services to you. If you're a small business, call us at 465-2621 to join our family of small business advertisers. Call us 465-2621. You'll be glad you did.
Okay, so we're back with you. All right. Someone was suggesting that we should not be judging individuals by their ages. In my fact, he went on to say, even God himself proposes to judge people when they're dead. You know, all of us face judgment after death. So why are we judging people now that they're alive? And the Almighty Creator, God himself, his position is that he'll judge us only when after we're dead, and he brings us back to life for that purpose. All right. All of us are aware, and we have to agree, that many persons look and act much younger than their chronological age. In fact, I find that nowadays, as opposed to when I was growing up, when I was growing up, I think that persons who were in their 70s and 80s and so on, and 90s, you could easily tell. Maybe even 60s at one point, 50s, you know. People began to show their ages early, and grandparents, of course, were always people who were elderly people. Grandparents were always elderly people. Nowadays, you really cannot tell an individual. You can't even guesstimate his age by his appearance. And I know during the lockdown, when folks were allowed out to shop for certain limited hours, and there were supposed to be lines for seniors, there were a number of issues because those in charge of manning the lines would insist that a particular individual had no right in that seniors line, and until the individual produced an ID, he was suspect in terms of age. Why? Because this person would say, hey, I'm 72. But the officer would not believe that based on the individual's appearance, physical appearance, based on the individual's demeanor, stature, and all of that. I know of a couple of cases like that. All right? And sometimes we wonder, how is it that these two persons are 60 years old and one looks clearly to be as if he could be the father of the other? That kind of difference, you know. Right? And then speaking about young people being grandparents, as an education officer, I had reason to entertain a lady who came into the office 25 years old, a grandmother. At 25, she had had the unfortunate experience of giving birth at 12, and her daughter gave birth at 13. The daughter to whom she gave birth at 12 turned around and herself was impregnated at 13. So at 25, she was a grandmother. So we really can't nowadays, unlike once upon a time when we could look at someone and fairly accurately guess that he or she was in his 60s, he or she was in her 60s, 70s, and so on. We can't do that now. I can call names, of course I won't, now. And if I were to ask you to guess the individual's age, I am not sure many of you, if any of you, would guess correctly. Because the individuals appear to be much younger than their chronological age suggests. Alright? I know one good friend of mine, for example, who is 78, may or may not be 79 before the end of the year. And he could very well pass for an individual in his late 50s, early 60s, in my view, and in the view of others who are aware of the individual's age, right? And then there are persons who are in their 40s and 50s who look to be 10 and 15 years older than they are. The St. Kitts National Men's Council, which is having this lecture on COVID-19 and men next Wednesday at the old girls' school, we had a habit of, before I went to Cuba, I don't know if it still happens, but we used to visit every male over the age of 90 on his birth date. You know, we got the information and we visit the individuals. And I remember visiting a number of them, one in particular around the halfway tree area, who at 95, I would never have guessed the man was 95. The man kept his place in near perfect condition, spick and span, tended to his garden, was robust, was vibrant, was up and about, was very conversant and fluent at that. And I thought the guy, if I had seen him down the road, I would have thought he was in his 70s, maximum. The man was 95. You know, and that has stuck with me. That has stuck with me. That particular individual, remember his name. All right? We have seen cases of persons at 100 years old taking part in marathons and doing better than persons who could be their grandchildren. All right? So the question of having folks retire at a particular age, is it really fair and correct? Right? The caller who was able to get through before he was cut off this morning was suggesting that we need to take of the younger people. But how do we do that? Okay, so we need to admit that not only do persons look and act much younger than they are, but like I said before, they are in really good physical shape, and they have another 10, 20 years of active service to offer in my books. But then if there must be an age, ladies and gentlemen, if we have to conclude that, hey, we can't allow people to work forever, irrespective of all the assets that he or she deploys, irrespective of all the good things that he or she brings to the table, if that there comes a time when he has to say goodbye, what should be that age? Bearing in mind all things considered, bearing in mind all the variables. Is 70 okay? Because certainly I don't think it's fair to say 55. 55 is utterly out of the question, ladies and gentlemen. 55 is out of the question. And by the way, so many persons, and this is one of the counter arguments, at 55, that is when they're still paying for their mortgages. Still paying for their mortgages. Their children might still be owing for student loans. Their children might still be living with them. They might very well have parents still alive whom they are responsible for. You know, because the man at 55, he could have his father is 70 and his mother is 65. Sorry, his father is 80 and his mother is 75. Okay? And they themselves, his parents, are still in pretty good shape. So I think 55 really should go. And I think just as Dr. Simmons had made it clear that this idea of bastardhood should disappear, I think we should make this one disappear as well, where folks, the retirement age is 55. I think that is really anachronistic. I think it's passé. It has no place in a modern society where we are boasting about our life expectancy having moved from early 50s, 50 years ago, to now it is approximating 80. All right? I think that should go. I would think that 70 is a good age, to tell you the truth. Except, of course, and I have to repeat myself, and I'm accustomed to doing that. As a teacher, you can only be an effective teacher if you repeat yourself, because that is how students learn, by and large, repetition. Except where the individual is ill, or is not performing, or demonstrates a bad attitude. Okay? We like to say that success is 10% altitude and 90% attitude. And a lot of us, of course, would prefer to have a person who doesn't have any initials behind his name, so to speak, who doesn't have 20 and 50 or even 10 60s, but who presents the correct approach, whose attitude is one of humility and willingness to learn and honest and so on, as opposed to the guy who has more degrees than a thermometer, excuse me, but whose attitude is one that is obnoxious and repulses. Okay? I think 99% of us would prefer that individual any day. And so when we speak, for example, of poor customer service, it's normally exhibited by individuals with a bad attitude, because those who have the correct understanding of their role and the link that they play in ensuring that the organization which they represent, which hires and pays them, when they understand how important that is, they are going to adopt and deploy the correct attitude and approach. So, is 70 a good age? That's my recommendation. Okay, that's my view. You don't have to agree with me. But what I would also like to see happen, and I think the late Bouncing Williams was talking about this at one point, several years ago, I think after he retired. He wanted to start an association of retired persons, that exists in other jurisdictions, right? Where instead of being home, rocking yourself away, an individual who's retired at home in his rocking chair, rocking himself away to oblivion. There is an association which meets on a regular basis, and the retirees, are active again, doing all kinds of things, all kinds of activities. I mean, you name it, they do it. Physical activity, brain activity, movements here and there, creating a very good and solid support system for each other. Alright, there are times when they'll just reminisce and share experiences and go back over the years and speak of their best moments and their most satisfying instances and the best practices that they encountered and so on and so forth. And of course, they'll be able to pass on lots of advice and information to the younger ones. But I don't know if that ever hit the ground. Maybe it's time that those persons who are retired, who are able, consider resuscitating that or reviving that. I think it's a good idea. We have groups for persons who are victims of domestic violence. We have groups for persons who want to escape the clutches of alcoholism and drug addiction and so on. We have groups for persons who would have become pregnant as teenagers. Why not a group for persons who have retired, whatever the field of activity is? They have retired, and some would have retired at 50, some would have retired at 60, some would have retired at 90. It doesn't matter. They're all retirees. And so there is this group. And perhaps that's something I should discuss with some known retirees and ask them if they would be interested in moving that forward. And persons who are retired, like I said, irrespective of age, they can all pool their resources together and help one another. But people have to retire at some point. I don't believe they should be forced to retire simply because they have arrived at a certain age. And I don't believe it's fair to discard an individual, to dispense with an individual simply because he has arrived at a certain age, irrespective of the solid contribution he would have made to ensuring that the organization has arrived at the point where it can boast success. Of course, we would agree that it would be unethical, it would be immoral, it would be wrong, it would be criminal almost to do something like that. Hey, boy, we know you've done well. We know we owe our existence and certainly our success to your input. I mean, it was simply outstanding, just critical. But boy, you're 65 now, you know. So what we're going to do is build on the success that you created. We're going to exploit the momentum which was generated by your positive, constructive contribution, and we're going to see if we can get further. But without you. Why? Because you're 65. Okay, and the person telling him that might very well be in worse condition in terms of health, in terms of mental acuity, in terms of physical ability, and so on, than the person to whom he's addressing those remarks. So that's something I'd like to continue discussing. Alright, it's a pity that the lines went down on us. Okay, and to tell you the truth, after experiencing yesterday evening with its inclement weather, it was wet and cold and rainy and then dark. It was such a delight to rise and shine this morning to meet the sun peeping through, forcing its way through the clouds. Electricity is back on. It's dry, and it's getting to a point where we can comfortably move about and conduct our business. It was such a delight, a nice contrast. Of course, we welcome the rains. We love the rains. We need the rains, but we know what an excessive amount of it can produce. All right, so we need the balance. We're glad for the sunshine. We're glad for the rain. So I give God thanks for today and for bringing us safely, by and large, to the end of another week. All right. I want to thank those persons. I want to use the next few minutes that I have here to thank those persons who have been tuned in to Frank and Candid. Number of persons meet me and say, hey, I don't call in, I'm not the calling type, but I listen religiously, and I like the program, I enjoy it, and it's a good thing. So I'm happy that there are persons for whom this program is beneficial. Of course, there might come a time when I can no longer continue because I just might be reassigned in terms of work, be given another assignment, which of course will dictate that I am otherwise occupied and engaged during this 11 a.m. to midday period, naturally and as expected. So until such time, I don't mind sitting here and hosting the show, but bear in mind that might not or will not necessarily continue ad infinitum. In fact, it might happen suddenly too, where I am told, hey, report here as of tomorrow or as of next week. Okay, so as we wind down, this week we were able to examine a number of critical, important matters which a number of persons were happy to talk about, and we will continue those discussions both via our guests next week and when we return to open lines whenever those are. Okay, but some of the more critical ones, of course, involve the reopening of the borders and our attention to detail, which is even more pronounced now that persons who are coming from so-called hotspots are going to be among us. Now that we are going to be welcoming back individuals who might very well be carrying the COVID-19 virus, although they show no signs or symptoms, I think we have to be even more vigilant now than before. Okay, and we know that we expect other flights to be coming in. We don't know what capacity in terms of seating, how filled the planes will be, but we know that they're coming and we need to be prepared to welcome them, whether they be our own citizens, our own fellow citizens, or whether they be visitors. We need to welcome them, but at the same time we need to ensure that we continue to conduct ourselves in a manner that is sensible, decent and sensible, to keep COVID at bay. we've heard of the news that a vaccine has been developed and has been tested on a number of individuals and has promised a 90% efficacy rate. The question is what about the side effects? You know, we have to consider those and determine whether one outweighs the other. Because we know there'll be no vaccine, no drug, no medicine which does not have some kind of side effect. One kind of side effect or another, whether it be mild, moderate or severe. So we have to look at what the possible and real side effects of this vaccine are or have the potential to be. Okay, so we'll see how that develops, and we hope that even though we might be accessing that vaccine sooner than some others, we will tread carefully because we don't want the cure to be worse than the disease itself. Alright? So we have to tread carefully there. Ladies and gentlemen, I think I'm going to wind down now and express thanks once again for your participation and support during this week. And in fact, since I took this seat back in September, and hope that we continue to learn from each other. So I want to wish you a very pleasant, a continued pleasant day-to-day Friday, and of course a smashinating and productive, whilst at the same time relaxing and reinvigorating weekend. Ladies and gentlemen, until when we meet again, hopefully next week, remember, do the right thing. Blessings and peace.